So I cleared Firebase. Now we can work on the orders page, which of course is empty right now. So first of all, with everything fixed, let's place a new order for our standard burger here. Let's enter some contact data into the field. Test street, some zip code, country, and an email address. Let's place that order. And on the orders page, we do see it. It's just that if we have a look at the orders container, we're not really using Redux for that. Here we're reaching out to the web in component did mount. Of course, I want to fetch my orders through an action creator, and I want to manage my orders through Redux. We already created that orders array in our state there. We're just not using it. So let's start with the action creator. And for that, I'll start with the action types. I'll export new constants here, and I'll name it fetch orders init maybe, so that we have a similar pattern as for the purchase, where we can set loading to true and then trigger this starting process where we reach out to the web, and then we have the success case and so on. So fetch orders init, fetch orders, let's name it start. Let's name it start because we also named it purchase burger start. So start. And then we have a constant fetch orders success. And of course, use the same name as the string identifier. And then finally, a third constant I'll need, fetch orders fail. And you guessed it, we'll use this name as a string identifier too. With that, we got the action types. Now in my order.js file in the actions folder, I want to create the action creators. So I'll create a couple of new constants which hold functions. And there I'll use a similar pattern as for purchasing burgers, where we also had success, fail, and start, and purchase burger itself, which is dispatched from a container, which does the async code part. So we'll have a fetch orders success function, where I do expect to get the orders as an argument, so that in there I can return a new object where the type, so that is our action of course, where the type is action types fetch orders success, and pass the orders as a payload. Now I also want to create a new constant fetch orders fail, like this, where I get a potential error we receive, and I return a JavaScript object where I set the type to, where I set the type to action types fetch orders fail, and pass on the error in case I want to use it. And I want to have an exported constant which I'll name fetch orders start. There I don't expect any argument. What I want to do there though is I want to return a JavaScript object, of course, our action, where the type is action types fetch orders, not success, but start. And this again is a similar pattern as for purchase burger start. And then I need my constant here where I run my async code. So the last action creator is just fetch orders. There, I expect no argument either, but in there, I will now use Axios to get my orders. And we already got the code in the orders file here in component did mount. I can actually copy that code here. Here we also already used the error handler, so that's good. I can copy the code from there, put it into my action creator, though here of course I need to return a function which gets dispatch first. That is what we return. And in there we're now reaching out to Axios, and we get it from orders.json here, use our Axios instance of course. We won't call setState though. Instead, I here want to dispatch my other actions. So I'll dispatch fetch orders success here in the then block. And there I want to pass my fetched orders, which I do transform here as an argument. And that is a good argument for where do we transform data. I do it here because I'm transforming the data I'm getting back. I don't want to put this into the reducer because if I ever change my backend data, I would have to change my reducer. And in this case, I have to change my action creator, I guess. But still, it feels more natural for me to have a reducer where I get the data in the format I want to store it, where I only want to do logical changes, and don't want to change anything just because of the data format I get. That is why I do data format changes like this in my action creators. So the fetched orders are then passed on to the fetch order success handler. I don't need to pass on loading here because I can set this right in my redux state. And then here in catch, I want to dispatch fetch orders fail and execute this, of course. And I want to pass on my error. So with that, we're handling this. Now, of course, the next step is to handle all these new action types in the reducer too. So let's head over to the order reducer. And there, I now want to add a couple of new cases in front of the default case. The first one is action types, fetch orders, start. In there, I obviously will return an updated state where I copy the old state. And there, I also want to set loading to true. It's the same loading property we use in the checkout page, but we're only either on the checkout page or the orders page. So it's fine if we reuse the property on both pages. That's the only thing I want to do here in this action. The next action type is the success case, so that we have fetch orders success. Here, of course, I want to store the orders I fetched. So I'll get my state and I'll set orders equal to action, and there the property name was just orders. We can confirm this in our action creator in the order file. There we dispatch fetch orders success, and in fetch orders success we have our orders property. So this is the orders property we can extract in our reducer, therefore this one. And these are the orders already, if you have a look at the transformation function, in an array format. So we can store that in our array. And the final thing I want to add to this update here is that I of course need to set loading to false. And now I of course also need another case, action types fail. So fetch orders fail. There I'll also return a JavaScript object where I copy the state. And we could handle the error. We could store the error in an error property here, but I don't want to use it here. I'll do simply the following. I'll set loading to false here too, because even though it failed, the loading at least is done. So that's the updated reducer. We updated our order action creator file. Now I just need to export the fetch orders action in the index.js file here in the actions folder so that we can trigger this from outside. And with that, we can connect our application. So let's do that now in the orders component here in the orders container. There in component did mount, I want to dispatch this new fetch orders action we just created. And for this, I of course need to create my new map dispatch to props constant, where I receive the dispatch action or method, and then can return a map, so a JavaScript object here, where I do map my props to dispatchable functions. So I'll name this on load or maybe on fetch orders to be in line with the action names. And there I want to execute an anonymous function where I eventually dispatch the action we just created, which I therefore need to import. So I import everything as actions from. And now let's move on to the store folder, the actions folder, and the index file in there. Again, we could omit the index part here due to the way our workflow works. And with that added, I want to dispatch one action from the actions object we import, the fetch orders action. And we need to execute this function to really get the action. Keep in mind, these are action creators. Now with that added, we can call on fetch orders in our component did mount hook. This props on fetch orders executed. But of course, for this to work, we need to connect this constant here with our component. So I should import connect from React Redux. So import the connect function like this from React Redux, like that. And then, as we did in the other components too, let's add connect, execute it, and pass for now null instead of map state to props, and map dispatch to props is a second function. And let's then also wrap with error handler and its function call with parentheses. Now this should work. I'm of course also interested in the state though, because I need my orders. Right now we manage orders and loading in the internal state. Let's get rid of that. We don't do that, we use redux instead. So let's add a second constant, map state to props. I get the state here and I return a JavaScript object where I do map slices of the state to props. And there I'm interested in my orders, which I get from state, order, orders. With state order, I'm reaching out to the order reducer. And with orders, I then reach out to the orders property in the state of that reducer. And the other piece is the loading state. Here, that is loading, that is state order loading. And now with that, I can pass map state to props to my connect function too. And then we can use our orders. So here we don't use this state orders, but this props orders, just like that. And if we wanted to show a spinner, we would have to import it. So we can import spinner from, and now let's reach out to our components, to the UI components and to the spinner there. And let's use this loading state. I'll create a new variable, orders. And this should be my spinner initially, but then I'll add a if check. If this props loading, if this is not true, so if we're not loading, I'll render this instead, this map. So then orders should be this JSX code here. And since it's not wrapped in any HTML element, we can just write it like this. Now down there, I can safely output orders. And I should get rid of this curly brace here. So with that, if I go back to my application and I reload the orders page, I get my orders, but I never see the spinner. The reason for this is that in our order action creator file in fetch orders, we never dispatch fetch orders start. I need to do that, of course, to set loading to true. So right at the start, I'll dispatch fetch orders start, execute it. Now if we save this, we see, well, it's so fast, Firebase is too fast, but we see the spinner for a fraction of a second. And we can confirm that fetch orders start was accessed here. So with that, we're now fetching the orders through Redux. We're managing them in our store. And we do manage them both when we place an order and when we visit the orders page. Side note, since we always load orders when loading the order container, it doesn't really matter that we also store an order on a successful purchase. In the order reducer, purchase burger success, where I store this new order, that doesn't really matter because we load orders from the server anyways when we visit the order page. But we can confirm in our Redux dev tools that we do store it before we fetch it from there. And it's of course nice to know how we could store a new order programmatically without reaching out to the server in case we needed that on some other page too. So with that, the orders page is also working. Let's now have a look at our application, see if everything works before we have a look at what we can improve.